Minister for Agriculture, Food and Regional Economics, Tim Mulherin, is with me on the show this evening. Tim, finishing school, you're ready to move out into a working life, and where did you see yourself heading at that stage?
Yeah, I was ready to move on, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to be. I sort of had ideas of becoming a priest or
A lot of
doing something in agriculture.
I'd imagine there was a lot of family idea about where you should be headed. You mentioned being a priest.
Oh, you know, parents were always supportive of whatever decision I wanted to make, and but because I was unsure and I knew that you know, I couldn't just sort of lounge around home and live off my parents, and so fortunately I got a job as a clerk with a local firm called Mitchell Moores, who were an old merchant firm that really contributed to the economic development of Mackay. They sold everything from international trucks and tractors to Burley bras to Noritake dinner sets to produce to food, electrical wholesale, insurance, they owned pubs. They were great employers, owned by 3 or 4 families. Took me a long time to work through the issues around whether to become a priest or not, and I didn't, of course. And I was at Mitchell Moores for 12 months to the day, and then I started employment with the Northern Electric Authority, which was a statutory government organisation that was responsible for generation and transmission of power from Mackay North. That was a great place to be at the time because there was a lot of expansion of the electricity network, the creation of the statewide transmission line, and so I was involved in the administration of the material side of projects, worked with a lot of engineers, and we were also building a gas turbine in Mackay at the time, so at night time I'd go out and while they're doing testing, sort of write down the results for the engineers, just because I was inquisitive by nature. And weekends I'd go out and on site where they're building transmission lines, because I did chemistry, physics, could read a schematic. I learned how to schedule, and as well I had the responsibilities of the administration of the Mackay area, payroll, budgets, purchasing, HR, workplace health and safety, and working with blokes that spent a lot of time away from home, and the issues that how that can impact on families, and so it was a great grounding, and because that organisation was morphed into the Queensland Electricity Generating Board, and then the Electricity Commission, and then the transmission line groups went across to the local distribution boards, and so I worked with the Mackay Electricity Board. I think my last job there was acting safety officer, but prior to that I did a review of all their work, of their policies and procedures around HR. So yeah, jack of all trades, master of none, but
pretty good grounding in the issues facing the workforce and the average man on the ground.
Yeah, no, it was, as I said, a great training ground. I worked with some great people that went on to bigger and higher positions in life, in the private sector. So you had the interface with the private sector. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I joined the Labor Party, I think, back in 1974 when I finished school. My father said at the time, it'll just dominate your life, and he understood I was sort of an obsessive nature, and sure enough, that's what happened. I used to save up my annual leave and go and work on campaigns for the Labor Party. Every 3 years I had about 10 weeks to offer, and that's what I'd do for fun. And one particular campaign, I was in Rockhampton, and I was having a drink one evening with a friend of mine at the newsroom bar at the Criterion Hotel, and there was a young court reporter who was on circuit taking down the transcript of District and Supreme Court settings, and we met, and she was there for a month. I turned out I was there for 3 months, but she lived in Brisbane, I lived in Mackay, and at the end of the day, love blossomed, and she was in Brisbane, I was in Mackay, and I threw all caution to the wind eventually resigning from the electricity industry and went to Brisbane and worked as an organiser for a couple of years. Erin and I got married down here at St Mary's Church at South Brisbane there, and then went back home in July '95 in June '95 to contest the election, and I've been the member for Mackay since 15th of July 1995.
You enjoy the life of a politician with all the ups and downs and the travel and the restrictions on time? You've got 3 relatively young boys. It's a very busy life.
It's very demanding, workloads probably as a minister in excess of 60 to 70 hours or more a week, and for example we had the summer of natural disasters last year, so I didn't have leave. I think I had last leave I had was January 2010, and then I had a fortnight off in January this year, which I worked 4 out of the 10 days. But it's rewarding. You're not at home in your electorate that often, so you've got to, so you probably go from being, I think I was the most accessible local member, to being, difficult to get in, but I return phone calls in the evening from down here. I enjoy helping people. Some of the ways of how you can, empower your local community. Think back, in a political career, you can get your name on a plaque and all that, but things that I'll always think that have made a positive contribution, things like setting up a drug and alcohol community partnership where there were real concerns within the community. So we took a holistic approach to that and set up this partnership. I set it up and involved different agencies of government and the community, and they come up with a really great model which resulted in a residential rehab facility in Mackay.
Mm-hmm.
Other things like the Vietnam veterans, they came to me and asked me if I'd come and meet them. They used to meet in an old warehouse on the river, because the first question they asked was, we want to build a facility, and I said, well, that's really the responsibility of the federal government. They were responsible for Veterans Affairs, and you could see the look in their face, cop out, all that sort of thing. And so I thought about it when I left the meeting and come up with a novel approach. We had a couple of old housing commission houses. If we could secure them to remove them from site, there was land that the local council administered on behalf of the state, and we could put them there, become an incorporated body. We could transfer get funding from, say, like the Gaming Machine Community Benefit Fund, put it on stumps, and from there we built this great centre where veterans and their families can meet, get services from various organisations. But more importantly, it was important to those veterans that it was a sort of self-help project. They had control of it. I linked them into other organisations, and they now have got a shed there where they make toys for disadvantaged kids, and fishing rods, and it's I think Canberra's written it up as the Mackay model of how 3 levels of government and the community and the private sector can work together. So basically we built something from nothing.
Yeah, very rewarding part of your job.
Those sorts of things. But I've thoroughly enjoyed my time as the Minister responsible for agriculture in this great state. I've got a real affinity with it because, as a kid growing up in Mackay going to school, they were either like me, had a connection with family still on the land, or were from the land. And in my family, sugar politics was always discussed, and one of my great uncles, who was a farmer with my grandfather, at a period he was the chair of one of the local mills, and made a significant contribution to the sugar industry. And Mum's brother was a dairy farmer in New South Wales, and Dad's got some cousins who are graziers. So it's, and I always find as agricultural minister that I needed to build a relationship with the stakeholders.
No, I'm just going to have to cut you off there, Tim, because I'm afraid we do have to go to a break.
Yeah.
My guest is Tim Mulherin. He's the member for Mackay. We're running out of time already. Great to be with you. We'll be back after the break.